live in a world alive with color. Pigments, dyes, paints, tints, shades. We wrap ourselves in color. We are aroused, seduced, tempted, assaulted, and comforted by color. Color affects our emotions and our psychology in profound ways. No words, just pure sensation. However, this seemingly magical effect, more intuitive than rational, is fundamentally the result of a physical process. A process grounded deep in evolution. Many of the creatures we share the world with have evolved to see color in ways very different to us. The question is, how will our color perception evolve into the future? In this episode, we will reveal the origins of our color sense, explore how color perception works, and examine an evolutionary miracle, the connect between eye and brain that provides our color vision. The modern quest to define and understand color unites many fields of study: science, the arts, history, psychology, anthropology. Each discipline offers a piece of the puzzle, a chance to crack the color code. The story of color takes us back to the beginning of time. We live in a universe bathed in electromagnetic energy. Light waves, radio waves, microwaves, X-rays, gamma rays, and other forms of radiation. Photographic and computer manipulation of these electromagnetic signals provides a spectacular glimpse into distant nebulae ablaze with color.
Colour to a scientist is quite a specific thing, and in particular to an astronomer, where we look at the colours of objects in space in order to learn about their physical characteristics, whether that be a planet, whether it be Mars, whose red colour betrays the fact that it's got a coating of iron oxide in its dust on the surface, or whether it be the pinkish glow of a cloud of excited hydrogen.
The universe is flooded with light. But after traveling vast distances, light waves are so faint that color in space is not immediately apparent to the naked eye. Our moon reflects light from the brightest star in our sky, the sun. But with no atmosphere, its creamy face radiates little color. But planet Earth is different. It is alive with color.
I always respond in a very emotional way to the blue of the sky and the blue of the sea. These are colours that strike me as being unbelievable, in the sense that I try and imagine myself as somebody from another world, perhaps from another planet, come to the Earth and look at this wonderful blue planet.
Why is the sky blue? Throughout history, it's been a question that's occupied our greatest minds.
Leonardo da Vinci tried desperately to understand why colour happened, why things were the way they were, why the sky was blue, why the trees were green, but it was without any real understanding of the nature of colour.
However, Leonardo was on the right track to explaining the colour of the sky.
He reasoned that what we were seeing was the product of a gas envelope being lit by the sun and somehow glowing because of that.
The question wasn't answered until the late 1800s, when British physicist Lord Rayleigh gave us the notion of scattering.
The bottom line is that when a particle of light from the sun hits a particle of air in the Earth's atmosphere, it will scatter, it will be blown off in some random direction. But the key thing is that blue light is much more likely to be scattered than red light. And that means that when you look in any random direction in the sky, you're likely to see blue light, which is why we see the blue of the sky.
At sunrise and sunset, when the sun is low in the sky, the blue is stripped out because of the greater distance light must travel through Earth's atmosphere. The cycle of the day goes to the very heart of the evolution of human culture. Ancient civilizations rose up in worship of the sun. For them, light and God were one. For centuries, the fact that color appears when light is shone through glass was miraculous enough. But one core discovery lies at the heart of the way we understand color today.
In the 1660s, Isaac Newton played with a glass prism and realized that the light that comes from the sun, when it passed through a prism, was decomposed into the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. And his key breakthrough was to realize that the white light that came from the sun was actually composed of these constituent colors. It wasn't an attribute of the prism itself that was causing the colors. The other half of his experiment was to recombine these spectrum colors backwards through a prism in such a way that they made white light, which is kind of the smoking gun to tell you that you've pulled light to pieces into its component colors and you've put it back together again and you've got what you started with.
Newton showed that prisms don't make colors, they analyze them. He established that colors are a fundamental property of light. Newton invented a word to describe the sun's light, and the word was spectrum. But by the end of the 19th century, we found that there was more to Newton's breakthrough than we'd realized. The color we perceive is only a small part of the story. The electromagnetic band contained inside a sunbeam includes wavelengths that we cannot see with the naked eye. The full spectrum is made up of rays that vary in frequency from kilometer-long radio waves through microwaves and infrared to the narrow band of light we perceive made up of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. Then once again beyond our perception to the short invisible ultraviolet, X-rays and gamma rays.
Man is just a poor creature sitting on a small piece of dust and with only a very small visible right range of electromagnetic waves. So there are plenty of things what we don't see.
The physicist may well say that color exists because of the wavelengths of light involved. But color feeds our emotions as much as our eye. 150 years after Newton, German scientist, philosopher and artist Johann Wolfgang von Goethe saw Newton's celebrated revelations as far too clinical. For him, color was not something simply trapped in white light.
He thought that Newton was doing some kind of surgery of light. And so he wanted to repeat the experiments by including the observer to look into the prism.
Newton had established an objective view. Colors are a property of light. Goethe took the subjective. Colors are a result of interpretation by the brain.
The main input of Goethe in color theory was to establish the link between the color and the soul through the brain.
Goethe's theories about color encourage artists to pursue an interior psychological journey that eventually led to the great art movements of the early 20th century.
And so Goethe was able to open the way to the Bauhaus, Kandinsky, Paul Klee, and the colors today.
Over time, we would come to discover that Goethe and Newton were both right. And in combination, their theories set science on the path to explore the relationship between color and evolution. Color vision is an evolutionary gift that enriches us sensually, spiritually, and emotionally. But color vision is not the sole preserve of mankind.
As humans, we've got a tendency of looking at the world and then assuming that everything's colored the way we see it. But we can only see whatever our visual system is sensitive to, but there are more colors out there than we can see.
It's become clear some animals do see what we can't. Evolution has made parts of the spectrum available to them that are invisible to us.
Lots of birds have beautiful ultraviolet colors on their feathers, and in birds it has been shown that ultraviolet signals are very important for courtship. So the male that has bright ultraviolet colors will be preferred by a female over a male that doesn't have those colors.
As well as birds, many fish use ultraviolet wavelengths that lie just outside our visible spectrum.
When I started, it was completely unknown what coral reef fish do with ultraviolet light, because lots of people thought that ultraviolet light does not travel through the water very well. But in actual fact it does, especially on shallow coral reefs where most animals live within 2 meters to 10 meters. There's quite significant amounts of ultraviolet light.
Australia's Great Barrier Reef. It's home to some of the most colourful fish in the world, including Uli's specialty, damselfish.
They're one of the largest families of reef fish. There's lots of different damselfish out there.
It was Uli who discovered that the damselfish use complex ultraviolet patterns to communicate. Now she wants to learn more about how they use them.
At the moment I'm particularly interested in the type of ultraviolet patterns they have, because I've noticed over the years that each fish has distinctively different markings. Some have a generally higher reflective area in the UV, some have more sort of finer dots or longer dots. The patterns vary quite distinctly between different individuals. So let's see if he's got his facial patterns turned on. Yes, you can see the dots on his dorsal body here, and also the second half of each scale reflects ultraviolet light.
Uli finds no two damselfish have the same UV markings. She suspects the markings are used for individual recognition, to identify breeding partners, or even to denote status in the community.
Their reproductive season is between November and February. During that time, there will be a dominant male defending the home range, and there will be a dominant female, and she's the one that lays most of the eggs. And during reproductive times, the male and the dominant female will defend this home range.
Uli introduces a foreigner into a damsel community.
Immediately, all the resident fish know that this is an intruder. This is a new fish. They've never seen it before.
The outsider is repelled. The home range is safe. The ultraviolet works as a secret language. As many of the larger predators do not detect the UV signal, the fish can display quite vivid signals to each other without attracting unwanted attention.
A predator lurking in the distance is not going to see a clear image. It's going to see a sort of blurry, fuzzy fish. So these UV colors are really fantastic for close distance communication because you can be brightly colored, but at the same time you camouflage because the predator in the distance can't actually see you.
It was here, in the oceans, that the very beginnings of human color vision originated.
And so, the very, very first thing that evolved before anything, you know, as far as being a sensor, like for all of our different senses, our very first sense was really the ability to detect light. Because
Jay Knights is a vision scientist at the Medical College of Wisconsin. His mission, to find cures for color vision deficiencies, has led him to explore the very origins of color vision itself.
I think that the story of color vision really begins with the very first single-celled organism. So you have to think back to 4 billion years ago. You could say, oh, the light's yellow, I think I'll swim up to the surface. We think about vision as being vision for objects. But back when there were only single-celled organisms, there were no objects to see. Well, we can't see them, but they're nonetheless there. And you know what? The only thing that they can really do is they can see light from the sky.
Many single-celled organisms possess the simplest eyes found in nature. Called eye spots, they contain photoreceptors that are sensitive to light direction and intensity. Eye spots help these organisms find the best conditions for photosynthesis.
There was the ocean below. All those single-celled organisms lived in the ocean. And there was the sky overhead, and these very tiny little organisms that were so small, even if they had a very sophisticated eye, it couldn't be sophisticated enough to see each other. But those organisms depended in order to get energy from the sun, and they had a very primitive force kind of molecule that they used for photosynthesis.
In the middle of the day, to avoid harsh ultraviolet light, the cells go deep. At the ends of the day, they surface to photosynthesize in the gentler orange light. This reaction to light is due to a primeval molecule called rhodopsin.
That molecule is the very one that's ultimately evolved into the light-sensing pigment that we use for vision in our own eye. So it started out as a molecule that was used to extract energy from the sun, and now has become the molecule that we use for vision.
It is this very direct physical link to color in the sky and the cycles of the day that triggers the complex emotions color inspires in us.
Really, our modern emotions are complicated reactions we have to stimuli that are appropriate for our survival. And that ultimately what we have as emotions now are things that are derived from a long time ago, these behavioral patterns that are important for our survival. And so it's not too surprising that our color vision is a really deep part of our being, because it's part of our evolutionary legacy to be able to respond to light in the way we do.
In the 4 billion years of its evolution, color vision has shifted dramatically in response to environmental factors. And as we'll see, color vision in the 21st century is taking some disturbing turns. Human color vision is in decline. And to find out why, we'll start by consulting the family pet.
Come on, Eddie, come on. Good boy. Come on.
Contrary to popular opinion, dogs do see color. However, mammals like dogs and cats see fewer colors than humans. They see the world like this, in only 2 colors, blue and yellow.
Good boy. Good boy. That's a good doggy.
Once, early mammals had full color vision. But around 230 million years ago, things changed. Scientists theorize that faced with stiff competition from dinosaurs and other reptiles, many early mammals found an evolutionary niche by becoming active during the night.
they had to develop very high visual sensitivity. And in the process of developing visual sensitivity, they could go ahead and lose their color vision, which was, they lost almost all the color vision that the dinosaurs had had, but they held on to just the tiniest amount of color vision, blue-yellow color vision.
And even today, 65 million years after the dinosaurs disappeared, most mammals still see the world that way. But it was not the same for all mammals. Something extraordinary evolved in the world of primates. About 35 million years ago, they regained a third photoreceptor.
In the case of primates, it was probably a red or a green visual sensor. And then that allows you to have 3 different dimensions of color vision: black and white, blue and yellow, and red and green. By adding 1 additional photopigment, added a whole new dimension of color vision. So you get purples and magentas and all the hundreds of different hues that modern primates and humans can see.
The importance of full color vision to early hunter-gatherers can still be seen today. The huli, indigenous to the southern highlands of Papua New Guinea, depend on the tropical forests for their survival.
The advantage that you get from having that other sensor, one of them is the ability to tell when fruit is ripe. By looking across through the forest and being able to, oh, there's that ripe fruit. So the advantages must have been great.
This is a fruit. Nem blanem hongo fora. One pla em in green. Na emi no good plalo. Piki mo using 1 plus something. Na narblaya em black. Em good pla trulo. Kai game blomi pla. Na em mi pla sa piki good na kai kai.
In the light of day, the blackberries that are good to eat are easily spotted. But in the orange light at the ends of the day, the poisonous green berries also look black. Fortunately for the huli, our brains have evolved to recognize colors even in changing light conditions.
We have very, very smart brains. And those brains can extract the right information about the visual world, probably partially from living in a world where we have the right experiences over a long period of time, and ultimately give us a lot of constancy in what we see in the world, even though different light is hitting the objects. Our marvelous brain is able to discount the fact that the illumination has changed.
Color constancy is a skill that's evolved from our ancient primate ancestors. It allows us a consistent color language. We need to be able to recognize colors in varying light to make sense of the world around us.
You know, this is the primitive form of apple. And this is very much like the image that our ancestors would see. These yellow apples against the green leaves would look the same way to them as the red apples against the green leaves because they didn't have the red-green dimension of color vision.
Some of them look exactly the same green as the leaves.
Exactly the same green. And of course, those would be the ones you wouldn't want to eat. Color tells us whether a fruit is ripe or unripe. Color tells us whether a skin of a person's face is healthy or unhealthy. Color tells us which is our car in the car park when there are 10 Ford Fiestas to choose from. Color gives us a way of recognizing an object based on its surface properties. Okay, I'm just going to rotate the banana in.
Color constancy is based on our memory of known objects. In this test, people will be shown 2 shapes. One a dome, and the second a banana. While looking at the dome, they must identify which color most suits the banana.
No, 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 no. yes, no, 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 yes, no.
We're particularly interested in very high-level mechanisms which might contribute to color constancy. So, for example, the fact that we recognize an object as being a particular object may enable us to call on our memory of its color and to use that memory to help us stabilize its immediate color.
The test continues. The dome is replaced by the banana.
Yes, 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 yes. No, yes, 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 yes.
When they are only seeing a dome, they only associate a very limited range of colors as appropriate for banana because they always associate the color yellow with the banana. Whereas when we display the three-dimensional banana to them, they will accept much larger range of colors, maybe many of them yellowish green, because in the natural world, the banana have actually much larger range of colors.
Yes, 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 yes.
That means that the shape of the object affect the perception of color. It changes our perception of color, and it might help us to achieve color constancy better because we know what the object's color should be.
In the 21st century, we're flooded with visual imagery and surrounded by color like never before. It's ironic that while we know far more about how color perception works than we ever did, the evolutionary pressure for good color vision is in decline.
For our evolutionary forebears, often our very survival on a day-to-day basis would depend on being able to correctly identify the colour of objects in the environment. But nowadays we mostly simply go to the supermarket to pick up the things we need to eat.
The evolution of our red-green colour vision has taken an ominous turn. In our increasingly colourful world, we're losing our ability to see it. 1 in 200 Western women have colour vision deficiencies, and for men, it's far worse. 1 in 10 men have colour vision problems.
Exact, precise, regular colour vision is no longer a matter of life or death. We speak about this as being a relaxation of the selection pressure for normal colour vision. So that's why we think that there has been a gradual increase in the proportion of colour vision defects over the course of recent human evolution.
You could just all bunch in a little bit.
This is the Overton family who live in Sydney. 3 generations of males in this family have colour vision deficiencies. They have a problem with green.
It probably started with my grandfather and grandmother on my mother's side. He has passed it to the female line, my mother and my uncles, and from then it was passed to me, the male, and then I passed it to my daughter, who was then passed it to her son. Oh, look at that one. Oh, yes. This is called Passion. Looks pink to me.
Yeah, pinky, even brown.
The Overtons are contemplating a little house decoration.
Well, yeah, I got the clue off it, Passion, so I'd have to have something to do with pink, wouldn't it?
The colourblind men have come together to discuss potential colour schemes.
What do you reckon, Jake?
Yeah, maybe purple.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I'd say it's purple, but it looks grey.
No, grey to me.
I was born with it. So how can I explain to someone else through someone else's eyes what I can see?
Why is colour blindness more common in men than in women? Well, the simple answer is that the genes which code for the colour receptors for the red and green receptors are located on the X chromosome. Women carry 2 X chromosomes, so if one of these chromosomes is defective, the other can take over the role of the defective chromosome. Because men only carry a single X chromosome, if that chromosome is defective, there is no second one to act as a backup. And so this will be expressed as colour blindness.
I remember one time I went to work and I picked up a lemon instead of an orange, and I ate the lemon at work, and they said to me, "Do you like lemons?" I said, "Oh, I love them, mate." I wasn't going to tell them because, you know, they just don't understand. Yeah.
To understand colour blindness, we need to understand how the visual system works. To perceive the colour in the electromagnetic signals reflected from objects, we need an iris to control the amount of light entering the eye, and a lens to focus the rays on the retina. The retina at the back of the eye contains light-sensitive cells called rods and cones. 100 million rods and 5 million cones convert light into neural signals. Each cone is sensitive to one part of the visible spectrum that we read as red, green or blue.
Ouais, t'es allé trop vite. Tu fais pareil.
But at night, it's a different story. Our cones do not operate in low light. Our rods provide our night vision. The truly remarkable part of our colour vision is how the imagery that our retinas record is transferred to our brains for interpretation. The world around us appears so tangible, but is it?
When we open our eyes, the world appears as a coherent place, three-dimensional, and we see ourselves as part of the world. And when the early philosophers first examined and studied the eye, they saw a little white tube leading from the back of the eye into the brain. And they thought, well, perhaps logically, it's light itself, which is funneled from the eye into the brain, and there's a sort of little picture being played out. Now, however, we know that something much more amazing happens. The image of the external world is converted into tiny electrical signals, and these signals are sent down the optic nerve. There is no sound, there is no colour, there is no light in this transformed version of the real world which is sent to the brain.
The electrical signals reach the primary visual cortex at the back of the brain, which acts as a control centre that passes the data out to adjacent areas for analysis.
One part analyses the movement in the scene. Another part analyses the colour in the scene. Another part analyses the distance to objects in the scene. These process signals are then returned to the visual cortex, and it's there that a coherent picture is put together within the brain.
As the brain is so fundamental to colour perception, scientists and philosophers continue to ask a profound question. Does colour actually exist outside the brain? Is it possible we live in a black and white world?
Colors do not exist in the world outside. What reaches the eye is electromagnetic radiation.
Professor Semir Zeki is a pioneering figure on the workings of the visual brain. But it was Isaac Newton who said it first.
Newton said, for the rays to speak properly have no color. In them there is nothing else than a power and disposition to stir up a sensation of this color or that. We live in a world which is full of color, but those colors belong to the brain. There is nothing in light to say that it's going to be red or green. It's the brain that does that.
Professor Zeki confirmed the notion that colour is a product of the brain by working with patients who'd lost their color vision as a result of stroke.
In these conditions, what you have to understand is that the retina is intact and the signals are reaching the brain, but they are not going to that specific part of the brain in which color is generated. As a consequence, the patient sees the world in shades of gray, but not in color.
While our perception of color may be a product of our brains, the signals that trigger that perception are a product of light waves interacting with the world around us. This bus appears red because the electromagnetic signals in light interact with pigments in the paint. The pigments absorb all the wavelengths of light except red, which is reflected back to the eye to be processed by the brain.
The brain is not a passive chronicler of visual events. It is an active and essential participant in generating those events. Color vision adds enormously to the amount of visual knowledge that you can obtain at a glance, in a fraction of a second, so that it guides you. And once all that is lost, of course, a significant amount of knowledge is lost. And a significant amount of information is just no longer available to you.
Well, being colourblind myself, I knew there was always a 50-50 chance of my grandchildren inheriting the defect.
This beat the St George Canterbury game way back in 1935.
One event brought home to Dennis Overton the seriousness of this issue. It involved his grandson, Jacob.
Newcastle person.
When he was 10, we were just sitting there watching the rugby league, and Canberra and Newcastle was playing, and one had red and one had green shirts. And he said to me, "Grandad, why have they got the same colour shirts on?" And I thought, we've got a problem here, I think. And I took both the twins, because he's one of twins, non-identical twins, took them into the computer, downloaded some colourblind tests, Ishihara tests. And the one who wasn't colourblind went through and got all the numbers correct. I put Jacob on there, and he went through all the colours and got them all correct. And I thought, well, there's something wrong here. I then sent the first boy out of the room and said, you know, what can you see now? And that's when he would admit. So even up until that point, and admitting to me there was a problem, he didn't want to tell anybody. And he said to me that others will perceive it as a sign of weakness.
Oh, yeah, that's really hard.
Yeah. So you get frustrated, don't you, right?
Possibly yellow. I'd have to say yellow.
Ish.
Yeah, ish.
Society's got to understand that there's many classifications of colour blindness, and they've got to understand how it works, so that with signs, with web pages, you're trying to give the community information. By not using the right colours, you are leaving out that part of the community. So with 1 in 10 males and 1 in 200 females who have colour defective vision, that impacts in Australia around about 1 million people.
That's nearly 1 million Australians, but as a worldwide phenomenon, it may affect nearly 200 million people. With colour blindness on the increase, science is looking for answers at the cellular level.
If you imagine, you think about the structure of the eye and the brain, it's almost as if one had a video camera that worked for 80 years, never needs cleaning, self-repairing, and yet we don't know the basic circuit diagram. So before we can really understand how to repair the system if it becomes damaged, we need to understand the normal functioning of the system.
Using state-of-the-art images of the cones in the retina, Paul Martin is analysing the connection between the blue, red and green photoreceptors.
If they're connected to the next stage, that means the signal is leaking, all right? But it looks to be like here, you see that one's not, that one's not, that one is a little tiny bit. So we can predict how much crosstalk is there, how much is the signals preserved and isolated as they go into the brain, and how much crosstalk or how much mess is there, if you like.
Determining the clarity of the colour signals reaching the brain became possible due to one major breakthrough that established the fundamental architecture of the retina.
Perhaps the most important breakthrough that's allowed us to understand colour perception in recent times is the discovery of the actual pattern of the different receptor types in the eyes of normal living humans.
That discovery, using techniques developed to study the stars, in effect turned a high-powered optical telescope on the retina.
Okay, Heidi, let's get a picture of Dan's cone mosaic. If we get a number of these, we can more accurately classify the cones in his retina.
Okay, ready?
Oh, great picture. We've known for 200 years, since the seminal work of Thomas Young, at the very beginning of the 19th century, that there are three kinds of channels for color vision in the retina. But what we haven't known is how are those three cell types distributed across the retinal mosaic. I'd really like to improve these images so we can better classify the cones in his retina.
David Williams' groundbreaking photographs reveal for the first time the significant fact that our retinal mosaic is a little like our fingerprints. No two are the same.
Yeah, every retina is different, and in estimating the color of an object, the brain has to take into account its own mosaic in order to get the color right.
The colorized scans reveal some retinas have more red cones than blue. Others have more green than red. But tests reveal that no matter the makeup of each retina, our brains have evolved to adjust. The result is that we all see color in much the same way.
Our perceptual experience is so internal and intangible, we can't ever possibly know exactly whether what you see is the same as what I see. However, despite these huge differences in the photoreceptor mosaics of these different people, they all seem to report color experience in the same way. That is, if you ask them, for example, to define what wavelength of light is exactly intermediate between red and green, that is, what is yellow, they all choose almost the same wavelength within about a nanometer or two of each other. A very good agreement across people. And we believe that that's not something that's dictated by cultural experience. We think that that's something that is dictated by our exposure to the environment and the world.
We now understand the arrangement of the first stage of this great machine. And now we know not only there are three different types of receptors, but we know how they are arranged. So this in turn enables us to understand the way that these inputs are combined at the next levels of processing, and ultimately how they're combined to enable the rich sense of colour.
Identifying the retinal mosaic has given birth to unprecedented opportunities to deal with color vision deficiencies, and perhaps even points the way to a cure for color blindness itself. These squirrel monkeys offer a great deal for those of us with color vision deficiencies. They have a lot in common with humans. Most females see full trichromatic color vision. However, males are dichromats. They've evolved to rely on the ancient blue-yellow color channels, so they are red-green colorblind.
Because he has blue-yellow color vision and has had that since birth.
Jay Knights and his wife, geneticist Maureen, are enlisting the squirrel monkeys in a grand plan. They're seeking a cure for color blindness.
If you could take an animal that's a dichromat, or a person that has red-green color blindness and only sees blues and yellows, maybe if we could add back that one extra visual pigment they're missing, that it could take advantage of something that was already there and instantly get the full kinds of color vision that normal trichromats have. So yeah, run the full gamut of the saturations.
The Knights need to determine the degree of the monkey's color deficiency. The monkey is placed before a touchscreen that presents a series of patterns. He learns to touch the screen where he perceives a change of color in the pattern. When he gets it right, he's rewarded with a drip of grape juice in one of the bowls in front of him. When he gets it wrong, a buzzer is heard.
So he's doing really well on the blues and yellows, as he always does. Let's now test him on the red and green.
Okay.
After testing for over a year, Jay Knights and his team have confirmed the monkey's genetic inheritance, an inability to see red.
If we had some way that we could get the missing gene into the cells of our eye, the gene could turn on, it could make that visual pigment that we don't have, and voila, instantly, if the nervous system has something already there that it can take advantage of to extract the information from the new photopigment, the idea is instantly you could go from being colorblind to having full color vision. So this is going to be 3 injections, right?
Yes.
I'll place the cannula underneath the retina, we'll be ready to go.
Yeah, I think he's fully dilated. His anesthesia is good.
Okay, I'm almost ready. Okay, here you go.
All right.
Got it?
Gene therapy is just a natural for the eye because the eye is a closed vessel.
I think we'll place our first injection there.
You could make up a solution that carries that gene, inject it into the eye. It would be taken up by a subset of the cells, give them that visual pigment that they had, and you have a nervous system behind it that can make it into a whole nother dimension of color vision.
Okay, so this is going to be 3 20 microliter shots for you.
All right, inject.
Okay, you're done.
Okay.
1001, 1002, 1003.
In this process, human cone pigment sensitive to red wavelengths is placed inside an engineered virus and injected into the monkey's eyes. The intention is that a proportion of the green-sensitive cone cells will be transformed by the virus and become sensitive to red.
Just absolutely perfect.
Well, he looks good.
All we have to do is wait a few weeks now. It's doing fantastic.
It is clear that the experiment worked. The animal can now perceive red.
But this is really good now. Look at that.
Let me change
Okay.
the test.
We're thrilled by it because a lot of people didn't think it would work because they thought that you couldn't transform an adult that didn't have a visual sense from birth. It would be hard to transform it to have a full new visual sense it didn't have before. But not only does it work, but it looks like it gives the animals full color vision, and it seems to do it from the time that the new visual pigment seems to be present. It kind of seems to give them an instant sense of new color. I can't wait until we get a chance to do it in human beings to see if they kind of wake up one day and look around and say, wow, this is what the world looks like to the rest of everyone else.
This could be just the beginning. New technologies may allow us to engineer color perceptions beyond the visible spectrum.
When you realize that adding one more visual pigment doesn't just add one more color, but adds another dimension of vision, it opens up whole worlds of possibility that people didn't think would be available. And maybe it even opens the door to give individuals dimensions of sensations and visions that no human beings have. Wouldn't it be great if we could even see in the infrared or ultraviolet? People realize that there are things to be seen in the world that we're not privy to.
We've seen how light can color our sky and the world beneath it. But only, it seems, if we're there to enjoy it. For color is in the eye and brain of the beholder, a sensation that we've inherited from millions of years of evolution. Color is a code that expresses emotions and informs inner psychology. At the same time, It's a code that inspires cultural identity and belonging. The more effectively any culture uses the code, Western or Eastern, ancient or modern, the more enduring that culture becomes. Through time, the arrival of new technology has delivered fresh, strong, lasting colors. How we've gone about making those colors is the subject of our next episode.